What's up, everybody? KleverKrok back once again for Week 3 recap of the GTA for Season 3, of course. Um, so today, we're going to go over these matches in a little bit different than we've done before. We're going to go through and we're going to talk about all the matches and as far as team building, plays, and any other remarks that I or the other two analysts have. And we're going to watch the matches, three of the matches, and we're going to talk about all of them. So anyways, without further ado, I would like to introduce Faytl, coach of the Wobbuffets.
Hey, back again.
And Mr. Justified of the Zubatman.
What's up, Pokey people?
Alright, so anyways, we will get into the first match. So, Justified, go ahead and take it away. This is the Mucks versus the Faytl.
All right, just looking at the team, I like the fact, if you look at the Mucks team, I like the fact that they're packing Seismitoad as a mixed attacker and a lead. Does a good job of stealth rock setting, good bulk. I like Garchomp. I'm not a big fan of Muck or Zebstrika, I have to say. I know he's run Muck well in the past, but it's just a very tough Pokemon to run effectively. And Zebstrika, as we've talked about before, is outclassed by a lot of other electric Pokemon. Also, if you look, he's brought Absol, but it's not a Mega. And I know Super Luck Absol is a good Pokemon in its own right, but he has listed Absol as his Mega, and I think you do a whole lot better as a Mega Sword Stance Absol. If you look at the other side, we've got a Espeon lead, which is a Magic Bouncer, which I really like. He packed Smeargle as well for the Dark Void and the Tail Glow. I like Tail Glow, but I'm wondering if Spore wouldn't be more effective, just looking at the accuracy difference there. I like Aegislash, Mega Houndoom, Starmie, all great Pokemon, all run together pretty well. The only thing that I would say is I struggle with slacking a little bit. That Truant makes for some easy switch-ins and maybe some setup fodder if you're not careful. So that's all I have to say.
All right. So I'll go ahead and talk about the plays. And I notice when we start it, you'll notice what happens is part of the fact that they didn't have any hazard removal, and they really don't have any like dedicated walls. But yeah, I agree with David. They should have brought Mega Absol this week because of the Magic Bounce. And, well, we'll go ahead and see why. So we start out, and he starts with Seismitoad, and he starts with Espeon. Good start on both sides. Kind of, I guess he kind of predicted the Stealth Rock start. And so Seismitoad's out, and you'd think that maybe he'd switch out or something, but he stays in, which is fine. And and Espeon goes for Trick, and he gets the Trick Specs, which is a pretty good play considering that he's a lead. So after that, that's fine. And then he goes for Stealth Rocks, and I'm not really sure if he just didn't know that Espeon got Magic Bounce or what Magic Bounce did. Or what, but that was
seems to be a running theme.
Yeah, it seemed to be kind of a big crucial play because now he has no hazard removal, and he's got rocks on his side, which is way more detrimental than the rocks on the other person's side, considering that Starmie probably didn't have Rapid Spin, but it did have the option to if it needed. So I thought that was pretty big to start out that way in the first turn. So we'll just keep going. Again, a good play, by the Espeon and a misplay by the Mucks. And so Mucks, switch him out, but they go into Volcarona, which is kind of questionable because even though Espeon went for a weird play in Dazzling Gleam, maybe expecting the Absol or the Garchomp to come in, or I don't know, maybe even the Zebstrika. It didn't do that much, but Volcarona took 50 from those rocks, which again is why it was so crucial. And at this point, Volcarona's going to get outsped and just get taken out by a Psychic, and that's a pretty big deal. I think maybe he thought he could live something and get either a Quiver Dance or a Bug Buzz off, but with those rocks up, it just demolished his chance of being able to take it out. And had he not gone for Stealth Rocks, he could have switched out there and gone for a Quiver Dance or a Bug Buzz and taking out the Espeon right then and there. So that was kind of a misplay there as well. You know, he switches back into Seismitoad. I'm guessing he just wanted to get off some damage and see if he could kill it, but Seismitoad's not offensive, so he just gets taken down in a couple hits, and I wonder if maybe he could have switched into Absol at that point and that second Psychic, and so he switches into Garchomp now, getting rid of the Espeon, but at a high cost of making Garchomp pretty weak. He, tries to get some damage on the Slaking, but the Slaking is strong enough to take out what remaining health he had left, and had he not taken such a beating from the Espeon, he probably wouldn't have had to go down to that, and he probably could have killed the Slaking, or at least along with it. And he could have, I'm not sure if he was running Sucker Punch on Absol or if he has run it on him before, but Sucker Punch would have taken care of the Espeon as well. So I'm not really sure what his goal was, but anyways, he's kind of at a loss here. Yeah.
As far as just team setup, this moment right here that we're talking about where Slaking gets rid of Garchomp is a perfect moment for Mega Absol. You've got Truant, a 3-sword stance, and maybe a sweep. So. Just a thought.
Yeah, it was pretty devastating to lose 3 and it'd only be at 10-7. So, he goes into Muck, and I'm wondering, okay, maybe he has Power Punch up or something like that. But let's just see what he does. So, I was thinking, okay, he might go to Power Punch, and maybe that's what Faytl was expecting. He goes for Disable, which is a bit questionable, because if he stayed in, it would have been Truant. And if he switched out, Disable wasn't going to do anything. So it kind of didn't make sense to go for that. And then from here, he goes to Shadow Sneak, which doesn't really do much. It's just good priority. And Aegislash is still pretty bulky. And then, so that was kind of a weird play. And then on the other side, Faytl went with Pursuit. And that wouldn't even have done a quarter of health, even if he did switch out. So that was kind of questionable too. He probably should have gone for a stab move or something rather than just going for Pursuit. But he did. And so we're going to go ahead and move on to turn 10. Turn 10, he goes for King Shield, and he goes for Ice Punch, which I don't know what he was expecting because it doesn't really do anything to any of his team. I guess he was trying to see if it would do more damage than Shadow Sneak, but it wouldn't have. And so he went for Ice Punch, and then Disable on the switch out, and so he's just kind of at a disadvantage, taking that King Shield debuff. That was kind of devastating. So here it's just kind of a back and forth, between the Starmie and the Muck, trying to do things. So he finally gets a Disable off. That ends up kind of working for him. But I don't know if he should have stayed in after, being -2 attack. It kind of really slowed down any sort of ability that he could have done anything to that Starmie. So it was a bit questionable, and if he wasn't -2 attack, he probably could have done some stuff with that Shadow Sneak, but it just wasn't something that he could have done really. So that was a bit questionable. Then going into, let's see, turn 19, he finally goes out into something else and gets the lucky miss on the Hydro Pump. He goes for the Thunderbolt to finish it off, which was a fair play. And then he, for some reason, goes for Toxic. I'm not sure why he is running Toxic on a Special Sweeper, because, especially on something like Smeargle that's usually run with a Focus Sash. But he, kind of let that happen and get the Tail Glow and Baton Pass into Mega Houndoom. So that was a good play on Faytl's part. And, I don't know, that was just kind of weird, like going for the Toxic on the Smeargle when he could have just gone for damage. And then after that, just going for another Toxic here in a second. Or no, he goes for Volt Switch. That actually happens later. But then I don't know why he went for the, let's see, Flamethrower. Yeah, he ended up taking down the Muck, and he goes for Taunt here. He's not faster, but a taunt didn't really do anything just because of a toxic. So Zebstrika was still going to get that off, and he could have just one-shot it with a flamethrower or Dark Pulse, and not even caused this residual damage to happen. So that was kind of a misplay on the Felidae's part, even though the Zebstrika usually doesn't run anything like toxic. So then he goes for a Signal Beam, and that doesn't do more than his Electric Stab move. I don't know if he thought that maybe it would be super effective, but the fire typing cancels out that. And then he goes for a Thunderbolt here, and then after this, he does something really kind of weird, and he goes for a Toxic on a Steel type. And I'm not really sure if he was expecting him to switch out or what, but that was kind of questionable as well. But Gyro Ball also is kind of a weird choice for a move to run on Aegislash when Iron Head's usually a better move, in my opinion. But that was kind of strange to me that he let it go down like that. And he used Toxic twice, I believe. Maybe he was just waiting to let it go down for whatever reason. But he did that twice in a row when he could have gotten off some damage on the Aegislash. And so even though Absol comes in and is able to land a hit when they probably should have just gone for a King's Shield for that, at least for that chance of not getting a crit. And so, he switches into Houndoom. Houndoom goes down, and now he goes into Slaking, misses the Hammer Arm, which, okay, the thing about the Hammer Arm is that, it has the chance to miss, even though it's not a big chance. And it does, to Absol, it does about the same damage as Return does, and Return doesn't miss. So I'm not really sure why he chose to go with that. And then, obviously, he's just hoping to, he switches out here to, which was smart, because Smeargle's kind of useless at this point. And so he goes for Sucker Punch here, so he was running it. I'm not sure why he didn't go into Absol sooner. He does go for the Night Slash, and I think that Smeargle was just stalling. And so he finishes off with a Return, and that's basically the end of it. So in general, that was kind of a weird match. There were some really good plays on the Felidae's part, but there was just some inconsistencies with knowing type advantages and interactions and stuff like that. Do you have anything else to add, Faytl?
Friggin' Magic Bounce, how does it work? That's Magic Bounce. Magic Bounce seems to be getting a lot of other people. Yeah, I actually will say I kind of end up kind of rooting for that Absol toward the end of it when it started to just take down all those guys one by one, and just that Houndoom surviving on literally the smallest amount of health it possibly could have to just burn it. That just screwed him completely. But I don't know why the Houndoom even really had Will-O-Wisp when he was going for the baton pass onto it. Why bother when you can just flamethrower everything to Bing and just
he literally
incinerate it?
Yeah, at that point, the Zebstrika was faster, but it wasn't Specs, so there was no chance of taking it out. He could have literally swept the rest of his team at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was still a good match, on both sides. It was 39 turns, and it was a close one, too, but I'm not sure that it needed to be. I feel like it could have been a 4-0 for the Felidae, mostly because of some crucial misplays that the Mucks played, but also some good plays on the Felidae's part.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on, we're going to talk about the Zubatman and the Black Ice match. We're not going to watch this one, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. So, basically, I didn't have a lot to say about team building-wise because both sides seem to have some decent choices. Black Ice didn't have to worry necessarily about any fire attacks outside of the Flamethrower from a Togekiss or Fire Blast from a Clefable. Everything else, he didn't really have to worry about that, so he's able to bring some of his strong grass types like Ferrothorn and Whimsicott. And so, I think, the only things I would really say is that, even though there was the Lumberry Bisharp for the Sigilif, once, which we'll find out, but once that, changed, he didn't really have any answer for it. But, the last thing was that Unaware Clefable absolutely needed to be there as a second answer to this thing. Because if he had since he had Ice Beam, you know, Clefable would have, Unaware basically works as a way to ignore stat changes. So if he had Unaware Clefable, it probably would have blocked that. But anyways, that's all I have to say about team building. So we'll go ahead and move on to the actual plays, which, Faytl, it's your turn.
Yeah, sorry about some of the noise coming through. Some of my mom's dogs are being a little whiner, and so if that comes through, apologies. Something I want to. So first thing I want to say, goddamn, Sigillus sweep. It happened, guys. He did it.
That was hilarious.
Friggin' like cosmic power, stored power, Sigillus. That thing is like easily the bane of everyone's existence in the random battle section on Showdown, and he pulled it off. That was just amazing to me. Sorry you had to go through that, Dan. I've been on the other end of that. It's not fun. And I've also pulled it off myself in random battles a few times. It is very funny to actually to manage that yourself is just friggin' great. And something I will say though is like he got kind of screwed at one point when he tried to do the entrainment Doug Trio sweep setup that he tried on me back in week 1. In that, in the middle of his setup, the leech seed he had the leech seed he had set, but at like I'm gonna have to go take care of that in a second. Again, the leech seed he had set kind of interrupted his attempts to set up, and that kind of it meant he couldn't take out the Venusaur, which is just really unfortunate for him. If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go take care of that noise issue right now.
Yeah, I can add on to that. So some of the things I noticed were kind of minor things that are just related to specific plays. Was, I might be missing something, but the knockoff on the substitute with the Landorus onto the Whimsicott, I wasn't, it was resisted, so I don't know if he was trying to make a safe, sub break and thought it might, or if he thought maybe the knockoff would get rid of the item even if it was behind the sub, but that kind of really, it gave him the chance to, really kind of break down that Landorus with the more, Leech Seed Drain and getting the Stun Spore and all that. Staying in was kind of rough on him, I think, because the Landorus could have done more damage to that Sigillus had it, been a bit more healthy. The thing that I noticed about the Black Ice is they tried to Leech Seed Venusaur when it wasn't on a switch-in. It was, he basically had some good momentum with the fact that, he was behind a sub, Venusaur came in, he could have gone for an Encore on the Sludge Bomb and then got a free switch-in to Ferrothorn, which he didn't end up needing because he was able to switch in predicting the Sludge Bomb from the Venusaur, but it could have been a safe switch-in where he could have done maybe a little bit more, and that's just a preference thing. It ultimately didn't really change the match. And then Black Ice also went for a Toxic on Bisharp, and then went for a Giga Drain, and I don't know. It seemed a bit weird to.
I think he was.
Ferrothorn tried to get Toxic or something.
Yeah, I think he was expecting him to swap out at that point.
Yeah, that's possible. I know the Giga Drain was just for residual damage, but maybe going for something else would have been a bit better. But then I think, I said this at first in my notes, that maybe he set up a little too early with the Doug Trio, but it ended up causing him to have that ability to trap his only counter for Sigillus. So I think that actually ended up working out for him. So even though I think that it was a bit early, if that was his plan, then that was a really good play. But I think other than that, Sigillus kind of had control once it was in the driving seat as soon as Bisharp was gone, and he couldn't really do anything about it, which is a shame. But man, it happens. It happens. The draft format allows for these kind of crazy things, and it's not the craziest, but man, it was probably not the first thing to expect out of any match.
Yeah, like once Sigilif starts getting going with those cosmic powers, you pretty much have to like hope for a crit, or trick them into, or like do what happened back in week 1 and trick them into burning you when you've got the guts. That's pretty much all you can hope for.
Yeah. So the next match we'll go ahead and go on is to the Alakazams versus the Gengars, and I'll go ahead and let Faytl take it off with the team building.
Something that I noticed like right away is that the Mess 47 Evan here, or which I believe is the Gengars. I've got it. I'm looking at like the replay here. All the Pokemon they brought with them, which I believe is the same team they brought with them week 1. I'm not positive it's the week 2 one as well. They're literally the first 6 Pokemon they drafted, which and I think he may be getting tunnel vision in regards to them if that also applied for week 2. And to the point where the rest of his draft pool is kind of like off to the wayside of it, and he's not got bad stuff there. Like he's got Mega Heracross, and I believe Slurpuff is in there as well, which you can get a good belly drum unburden set with that, and it can be an absolute beast.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the opposing team, you got good stuff. You got like the hazards with Skarmory, with the Stealth Rocks, which, to be fair, not a lot of the Pokemon he's got really take that much damage from Stealth Rocks, but it's still damage is damage. And then you got Breloom, which has already proven itself to be very effective in this league with just sporing things and having very powerful priority in Mach Punch and very powerful multi-hit move in Bullet Seed. You got Mamoswine, that's got a good priority too, and Ice Shard. He's got a Togetic on the defense, and you got Salamence. I believe Salamence had Intimidate. Actually, no. Yeah. It was running Intimidate. I was scrolled too low. So, like before it Mega Evolves, you can get some good attack decreases off of that, and then you got just Entei. That's just a fantastic physical attacker if you slap a Choice Band on that. Overall, I think his team building was very solid, especially since his opponents may be getting a little bit repetitive, so he can know what to expect. Like you've got Breloom counters for Ralligator and Golurk to an extent, and you got you get stuff like Mamoswine and Entei just rip Torterra to pieces.
Yeah. All right. Well, David, do you want to start with the plays?
Oh,
David,
Dave.
you there? You might be muted.
Sorry, I was talking, but I had myself muted.
That's okay.
Anyway, if you look, there are a couple of plays that were a little questionable to me. One of them actually worked out pretty well. There was turn 9, he had Electros up against Mamoswine, and he went for the Flamethrower, which actually obliterated Mamoswine, which super effective. You're thinking good play, but normally you run Thick Fat on Mamoswine. So I was really hoping for the Giga Drain there. But like I said, it worked out really well because it was not a Thick Fat Mamoswine. I don't know what he was running, but I don't see any reason for a Snow Cloak or I don't even know what his other ability is. Oblivious. That's right. And I guess there could be a use for Oblivious in there, but Thick Fat really takes away that fire weakness and water from, or not, I'm sorry, just fire. And takes away a ton of ice damage from him. So I'm not sure why you're not running Thick Fat there. And then he comes in and he brings in Breloom and goes straight for the focus punch. And without a sub, that's a really tough move there. Now there were a lot of plays where he got unlucky. He hurt himself in confusion a ton.
Yeah.
Switched in on an Ice Punch that was, I thought, a bad switch anyway. But to be fair, I think he was just trying to get an Intimidate off on a Dynamic Punch and then get out. But man, it's a dangerous switch. You're talking about a win condition in Salamence going to Mega. The other thing that I noticed was for Alligator seemed to get a little shy on his D dances. He he had a chance to really set up on that Togetic, but instead he went for 3-4 turns, just waterfall, ice punch, waterfall, ice punch, and I mean he could have been to 4-4 if he'd have really wanted it. So I thought that was a little bit of a misplay there. Besides that, I mean, at that point, he really had it kind of crippled. There was a spore. I will say there was a play that cost Breloom when he tried to use spore on a Pokemon that was already paralyzed. Obviously, that's not going to work. You can't sleep with paralyzed Pokemon, and that cost him his Breloom. Whereas, like a Seed Bomb or something like that might have done better, considering it was paralyzed. And then after that, you're stuck with Entei. That was, I don't know if it was stuck on Extreme Speed or if that was just he thought his best play. But I think it might have been stuck Choice Banded.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. It was. He got the knockoff later on. So, and then he just gets walled out. So, yeah. I mean, a couple of tough plays as far as bad luck. There were also a couple of plays that really cost him as far as just losing Pokemon. Like I said, Thick Fat Mammothswine there would have gotten him Electros, and then just Seed Bomb or anything offensive that wasn't Focus Punch from Breloom would have gotten him, a Grass Attack would have gotten him for Alligator. So a couple of big plays that really cost him the match.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and add that, like, I noticed turn 1, the Gengars made a good decision to set up, predicting that, you know, I forget what it was, to switch out on the Alakazam side, and I think a lot of the mistakes that both sides made, but I saw it more on the Gengar side, and we also saw this, you know, in the situation with the Mucks, and we'll see it in some of the other matches too, is that I'm not sure if people necessarily know, like, how stab, like, bonuses work, and, like, that sometimes going for a stab attack that does neutral damage is better than, like, weaker power super effective attacks. Like the ice punch on the Skarmory versus the waterfall on the Skarmory. The waterfall does more, so I'm not sure why he would go for ice punch, much less the fact that he should have set up more D-dances. So that was kind of interesting. I think that's just something that people need to be aware of, that stab, you know, that means same type of attack bonus. It gives 50% bonus in power to an attack if it's of the same type as the Pokemon using it. So just be aware of that, and, you know, what power doubles when it's super effective, you know, or double super effective means that it gets 4 times power bonus. So just keep that in mind when you decide which ones to do, because those damage rolls and, like, that slight damage difference can make games, like, totally different. And then I thought it was weird that he would go for knockoff, you know, when it was obvious that Entei was a choice banded, and he was taking less than half, so he could have just Toxic stalled it out. So I'm not sure why he knocked it off there. And then I also don't know why he went and switched out to Golurk just to get obliterated when it was still, when, you know, I think keeping Gliscor in was still his best move. So in general, I think, you know, there were some interesting plays on both sides, but I think ultimately, like, the Alakazams were played a bit risky, but also, like, I think made a couple, like, miscalculations. Like, I believe at one point the Alakazams weren't aware that, like, D-Dance raised the attack, and this, you know, did basically causing more damage, you know, and I think that, like, those are things that, like, you want to be aware of going into a match if a Pokemon gets, like, moves that makes them hit harder. So just for future reference. So
totally agree with you, bud.
Yeah. So moving on, we're gonna watch this match, and that is the Charmeleonaires versus the Wobbuffets. And so we're gonna have Faytl talk about the team building. So go ahead.
Well, about the team building for the Wobbuffets, I have an inside man on the job there.
Nice.
This matchup was actually one of the ones probably the one that I was most worried about going into the week. Just look at all the nasty, terrifying things he has on that team. He's got Greninja, he's got Mega Pinsir, and something I was really worried about. I heard you guys mention it in the power rankings video that came out a while ago. How probably the largest issue I had on my team was the lack of physical bulk. You are not wrong, and I was terrified that he would bring Machamp or even Haxorus, because those guys especially like Haxorus is just especially a really good counter to Mega Charizard if I don't have a D-Dance up, because just you just outrage, I'm gone. And Machamp just runs train on so many of my things. Luckily, he brought neither of those, which is very good for me. I'm also very glad he didn't bring Tentacruel, because I don't really have that many counters for that unless I like EQ it. But my main concerns were essentially the Greninja and the Pinsir. So I actually had a lot of differences in how I run some of the Pokemon I had with me. Like Charizard, actually, the previous 2 weeks I've been bringing a sweeper set, like you normally see Charizard run. This one I actually ramped up his defensive stats a lot and he also had Will-O-Wisp as well, to just try and cripple that Pinsir as much as I possibly could. And I something that you won't see this in the battle. I'm spoiling it a little bit at the end of the battle here, but I had a backup plan in case that didn't work, in the form of Victini, because something I haven't done before. I haven't run any kind of items like these in the league so far. Victini had Bolt Strike, and its item was the Choice Scarf, so I could guarantee outspeeding the both of them and hit them with the Bolt Strike, which would almost certainly kill the Greninja, and would probably take out the Pinsir in a single shot as well. Because those are the ones I was so worried about. And I had a bunch of a couple other like small touches, like I was packing Seed Bomb on Ambipom to take down Quagsire, stuff like that. I think I'm all done. And I should probably talk. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about the team that's not me. He had just like, he had a lot of good choices here. Like, it was very smart of him to bring the Xatu, because I've got a lot of good hazard setters on my team. I've got Galvantula, which has the sticky webs, which slows down pretty much everything he has that's not named Xatu, because that's the only thing that doesn't fly. And Pinsir's on the ground when it comes in initially, before it Mega Evolves. And I've also got the Nidoqueen, which can set my pick of Stealth Rock or Toxic Spikes. And I've also got Klefki, which gets spikes. It's like I've got hazards all. So I knew he would bring it. So I just like, the only hazard I brought was Sticky Web, just because I knew as long as he had Xatu, there was no point. There was no point in me trying to set hazards at all. In fact, I just used that to my advantage in the first turn. Not as much as I could have, but he just sent out the Xatu at one point. And I was just like, don't even bother, just zap it. He was smart to bring Arcanine and Granbull. That's double intimidate users for my heavy hitters like Charizard and Conkeldurr, because those are my main hitters. Like Conkeldurr especially, because Conkeldurr's become a surprise MVP for me. I think he's got the highest kill number of kills in the league so far. The highest number of knockouts anyway.
Yeah, he's number 1 for KD.
Brilliant. And just that Pinsir and Greninja, cannot emphasize how much absolute beasts they are, and how well he has used them, and how well he has shown that he's capable of using them. So I was up against a very tough match from the get-go here, and which I'm just glad he didn't end up bringing more physical attackers, because that would have hurt me a lot.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and start the match, and I'll put it on. David, would you prefer slow or normal?
Let's go with normal. I pretty much know what I'm going to say.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start it, and David, you can take it away.
Sounds good. All right, so you start off with Granbull versus Shocky Jockey there. Not a big deal, and then he makes a prediction that's a dangerous one, but a normal one in that he's going to go for the sticky web on the setup. It's a great play not to go for the sticky web and to go for the volt switch. It was a safe play if he stayed in, and it worked really well if he didn't, because he switches into Zatu there, and even if he didn't, you get a free switch. Brandon, is your screen freezing on me, or
is it lagging a bit? It's working.
Yeah.
On
It always lags a little. It always lags a little bit.
Cool. So then we've got, yeah, I'm already on turn 4. Holy cow.
Yeah, I'll go back a couple. All right, here we go. We're on turn 2.
Just want to say
Alright,
really
sweet.
quick, in retrospect, I really should have thundered instead of volt switch, because that might have just taken out the Zatu completely, which would have been great.
Yeah. So he makes a good play here going for the seed bomb. So go ahead and...
Yep, Seed Bomb against Quagsire is a really good play. He switched in to take the fake out, which was a good play, but Seed Bomb was a big surprise there. So you force the switch out, which is a good thing. He goes into Arcanine, which is a good play for the Intimidate. And so from there we get the double hit. Doesn't do too much. We should get the Flare Blitz back here in a second. Yep, but that was predicted, which is a good play. Going to Charizard. It would have been a good time to... I think it would have been a good time to try Wild Charge, but, you know, it is what it is. Good switch here into Granbull. Absolutely. He knew that Charizard was X, so Intimidate plus the type advantage. So you go for the Earthquake, doesn't really get much out of it. Then the switch, you get... Once again, Galvantula, no big deal. Got the play rough there. It's a good play, solid. Switch out. Now, here's the second time going for that. You had to know the first time that it was going to be, like, you got to learn after the first one. Keep thinking he's going to set up Sticky Web. I guess he was trying to play mind games a little bit, but it was a dangerous play the first time, and to play it again the second time was maybe a little tough. Now, in his defense, there's really not much on that team to switch into Galvantula. So maybe he was sacrificing too. Can't really say. So anyway, after that, you got Kermit coming in. The extra sensory, he outspeeds. Solid play. I don't have any problem with that. I think you're lagging on me again.
Oh, okay, hold on.
But anyway.
Right now, he switched the Granbull into Milotic.
Whoa. All right, yeah, so that's a tough play because Granbull is physical. Milotic's naturally bulky anyway. And he's lucky he didn't get burned the first time, but really there was nothing else to switch into again. So there really was no special wall here, I will say. Goes for the Wild Charge. I'm not sure if it would have gotten it without the crit, but I think it would have just because Milotic's more specially bulky. So might have been a lucky crit, might not have been. I'm not really sure. A good play here by Dan to switch in the Face of Death against Ambipom and then switch it back out, predicting the second Seed Bomb. But here he has no extreme speed on Arcanine, which I think was a real misplay there. So he goes down to the Acrobatics, pretty easy. Surf, again, good play there. He's going to outspeed. This is a big play right here. The switch out there, he lost his dark typing. So if he was going to keep it out, I think it was a good time to keep it. Now, I understand trying to switch in, but you're going to end up with a Mach Punch later on because of this. The play of the match right here is coming, and that's a very greedy Sword Stance off of Stone Edge. You know it's packing Stone Edge. And
or Ice Punch, for that matter.
Or Ice Punch, yeah, that's a good point. And so Return would have been a great play there. And I don't know, he might have gotten the sweep without it. I think Quick Attack might have gotten Victini.
He fully admitted to me that he got greedy with it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I don't know if Quick Attack gets Victini with the Aerial 8, but it at least gives you a shot at it. So he would have had a real good shot at the match. I don't know if he'd have won it or not. It would have been real close, but that definitely sealed its fate right there. So a couple misplays. Like I said, I thought switching out and losing, like bringing Greninja's Dark type back to him on that was actually a really bad play as far as like how that affected the match.
I think what he was thinking, this is the only thing I'll mention, was that he wanted, I think because he had Rocky Helmet on Quagsire, he wanted to get that damage off on the... But you're right. I mean, I didn't even think about that. If he had stayed in, the only thing, if Conk was running knockoff, that was the only thing he could do, and it would have done massive damage to it. But if he had knockoff,
Yep.
it still would have probably killed. So he probably wanted to get that Life Orb residual damage, from the Quagsire off and sack it off and get a safe switching into Pinsir. But, that greedy swords dance was really what ended him, so...
Yep, that was it right there. So, but yeah, overall, the match was played at a very high level on both sides.
I think so. It was still a really good match.
Yeah, it was a very good match. I've got to.
Oh, thanks, mates.
That's what we're doing, but as far as like both sides, that was one of the better matches we've seen this season so far.
I agree. Alright, so we'll go ahead and move on to the NPCs versus the Raikos. We will not be watching this match, but I'll go ahead and jump into the team building. So, I'm actually having a hard time remembering what they brought, and that kind of defeats the purpose of talking about that. So I'm going to open it up real quick so we can just take a look at it. So, we've got a pretty good setup on the Raikou side. Blaziken, Slowbro, Raikou. Enough said. Just those three is enough to threaten basically all the steel types and stuff that NPC is packing, as well as the Tyranitar. Really, those three just kind of handle his whole team, to be honest. And then the rest were just kind of building around it. And so, I noticed that the Raikous forgot Eviolite, or any item for that matter, on the Dusclops. And that may have determined why it went down to the Lucario. It could have probably killed the Lucario and probably would have gotten him a 5-0 or even a 6-0 for that matter. But yeah, not packing the Eviolite probably costed them the differential there. And then the other thing I noticed was that even though I think that the NPCs had a decent setup, they really had no answer for Mega Slowbro outside of what you'll see later on Rotom's build. Ended up working out, but I feel like bringing 3 steel types to a team that has 3 different Pokemon that are really, they're pivotal Pokemon, all resisting steel moves, was just kind of a problem. And I feel like they probably could have brought something a bit better when it comes to team composition. But anyways, we will go ahead and jump into it. Faytl, do you want to go ahead and I'll set it on normal or slow? Which would you prefer for the plays?
We'll go with normal, I suppose.
All right, here we go.
So immediately out the gate, just the problem with Forge is a great Pokemon, but the problem is it's so predictable that you're always going to be wanting to lead with it, which you see him taking advantage of here, going with the double Shell Smash, and all he can do is just set up. I would at least have tried to Volt Switch out just something that could. Well, at this point, what really is going to be able to tank to just take a hit from a double boosted Gorobus? And so just immediately, just with a Pokemon like Forge, it's so easy to take advantage of, and just so very easy to just get completely wiped out here. I was surprised he stayed in here, and then I see the Sash. It's okay, you're doing it to get as much damage off as you can, and just then you see him Baton Pass into. I was surprised he didn't Baton Pass into that monstrous friggin' Blaziken of his, but he goes into Dusclops, which, to be fair, that now he's got something that's got a lot of power behind it, and also a lot of bulk, or it would if he had not forgotten his Eviolite. Even without the Eviolite, though, Dusclops is a pretty bulky Pokemon, and just something that was very much against the NPCs here was that we once again have an example of someone using a fighting type attack on a ghost type. I don't really know why. But it just, from here on, that Dusclops just destroyed so many things. Just took out Tyranitar in one hit, and just Gardevoir goes down to it, and it was pretty ballsy, and I very much enjoyed it, and how he gives the humongous boost, not to his sweepers like Raikou and like Blaziken, but he gives them to his tank to give him a very well-rounded attacker in that. That was smart and a different approach that I would not have thought of. Like I would have just passed it on to Blaziken or Raikou, or maybe even Slowbro, since you can get even more boost with Calm Mind on that. I never would have thought to bring it to the Dusclops. Okay, something I want to talk about very much here is this is partially a team building thing. I have no idea why his Lucario was packing the Dragon Pulse. I have no idea why it seems to be packing it every week. Like, even when he like again even now is up against someone who does not really have Dragon type threats to deal with. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like some of his inclusions were smart. Like he's got the close combat on this thing. He's got the Shadow Claw, but ultimately it just very much needs better coverage than Dragon Pulse, because Dragon Pulse, I like Dragon Pulse, but it hits one thing, and you've got Lucario that's just got just this great wide variety of things that it can take advantage of. Like you could give it, if it's a Hidden Power Ground, that right there gives it something to use against Blaziken and against Raikou. You could give it Dark Pulse, which will hit harder against Slowbro and has a chance to flinch it. But just immediately what leaps out to me here is that from the very first move, just setting up Fortress, it's just so very predictable. And when you've got a Shell Smasher like Gorobus, it's just so very easy to take advantage of and gain immense momentum, like we saw what happened here with Dusclops. And Dusclops would have gone even farther had he remembered to put the Eviolite on it. I don't even know if it would have gotten knocked out. He could have had a 6-0 sweep, which would have been ridiculous and outrageous. Yes. But those are the things that very much leap out to me about the plays here. He saw his opportunity to take advantage of Fortress and how little damage it can dish out, and was able to just go for that, what is normally a very risky move, going double Shell Smash, and he was able to do that with almost no risk. I don't even know if a Volt Switch would have KO'd after two Shell Smashes, just because Fortress is almost always run with like no investment in attack, and so even with the super effectiveness run there, it was a very smart play, and he very much just took great advantage of it. That's all I can say about that.
The only thing maybe to add on that I could see doing with Fortress to maybe help out a little bit. You're right. You can't lead with Fortress every time. There's nothing wrong with bringing him and leading with him every once in a while, but bringing him just tells your opponent you're going to lead with him. The only thing that I could see maybe helping out there was maybe a Cut-Sat Berry Explosion, and then go into something with priority. It doesn't matter at that point that it's Shell Smashed. You'll probably get to the Sash because you're at half defense, and you can.
Gorbis has 40 base HP too, so it definitely would have.
Jeez, that's low.
So, yeah. So I think the Cut-Sat Berry Explosion route is one of the better routes to take with Fortress anyway.
I agree.
But I think that would be the only way that he was going to get gaining momentum on that. Besides that, the other thing I'll say is I understand Mega Lucario is a mixed attacker, but I'd rather see him stick to one or the other. He was bringing Shadow Claw as well as Dragon Pulse. And Mega Lucario does very well in special attack and has a really good move pool range in special attack, so I don't understand why not go one or the other. But that's really all I've got.
Yeah, and something else that I very quickly want to say about the Gorobus. One second, let me pull up the thing here. I very much was impressed that the coach of the Raikous would bring that without White Herb, like going double Shell Smash. Like that alone is just generally you don't see it happening. Getting two Shell Smashers on top of each other, to do it without White Herb, that is very brave of him, and it worked out very well for him. It made that Dusclops just unstoppable. So he's got some very gutsy strategies going for him, which when you combine that with how he obviously knows how to take advantage of them, and how he's got just very strong Pokemon that he knows how to use in the form of Blaziken and Raikou, which he didn't even need this week. Even though he brought them, he had no need for them to just absolutely decimate. Hey, he's very much jumping out to me as just one of the better teams and one of the better coaches of this season, and it terrifies me to death that I have to go up against him this week.
Yeah.
And we're the only, and as of now, I believe we're the only two teams that have not taken a loss yet. So yeah, one way or another, only one will stand tall by the end of this week.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and say a couple things about it too, just real quick. Is they were talking about the Shell Smash and everything. If they just simply had Metagross bring Bullet Punch, which when I have Metagross on my team, I always bring that because I love priority. But man, like, Bullet Punch would have totally stopped all of that. Like, he would have had so much momentum if he had taken out that Gorbis before it could baton pass. And it wouldn't have been, it still probably would have been a tough match for him, given the fact that he still has Raikou and Slowbro and, Blaziken to deal with. But it was still
the flaming chicken of death.
He lost 3 Pokemon because of that, and he didn't bring, he didn't bring Bullet Punch, and that ended up costing half his team. And then the other thing was, and I don't know if he just didn't know about this, but when Slowbro Mega Evolves, Shell Armor prevents crits, and that's the ability it gets. So bringing Shadow Claw, even though it's super effective, I'm not sure that it necessarily was, I don't know if he was hoping for a crit at that point, or if he was just trying to do super effective damage, but I don't think that was an efficient way to do that. But then he did bring Discharge instead of Thunderbolt, and ended up working out for him. So I think that was a smart play on his part. Bringing that just for the paralysis was a good choice. So we'll go ahead and move into the last match, which is the Krookodiles versus the Fakemon United. And this was a very long match. But we'll go ahead and jump into team building. David, do you want to go ahead and take it off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No.
If you look at the team building, both sets are really well set up. I'll start off with Fakemon. You got a physical sweeper in Cloyster, a special sweeper in Latias, a special wall in Blissey, a physical wall in Aggron, a great revenge killer, absolutely monstrous revenge killer in Volcanion, and another special sweeper in Chandelure. Really a good setup. The only thing that's kind of tough there is Aggron, as a physical wall, does not heal itself. So you need a Wish user or some kind of support, but Blissey can't offer that. So I will say that's generally a pretty good setup. As far as the other side, you've got, again, a physical sweeper there and Krookodile, Zapdos, which can be run a number of ways. Mega Sableye, which is a monstrous terror. Chansey, which is a great special wall, and with an Eviolite can even tank some small physical hits. Weavile, physical sweeper. Blastoise, again, you've got a lot of options with. He can be run as a bulky special sweeper, or he can be run as a physical wall. Again, you've got a lot of options. The only thing is, if you are going to run him as a wall, you do need Wish support, but again, Chansey can provide that. So both sides set up very well as far as just typing. You've got 2 dark types on Brandon's side, but then you've got the ghost typing that completely takes away the fighting problem. So I've got nothing bad to say as far as either side's what either side is bringing.
Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and jump into this. So as the coach of the Krookodiles, I know a little bit about how I was thinking about this. I started off with Blastoise expecting the Cloyster lead, and I did get that, so I went ahead and went for the Aura Sphere. But maybe instead of going for Blastoise to start off with, I probably should have gone for Zapdos, because I knew I could do Volt Switches all day. But it really didn't cost me all that much. So basically what is about to happen is basically Chansey sits here and Wish passes and Wish passes and Wish passes. And Mega Aggron tries to break it with Superpower, but going for Superpower once when I've got Wish Protect, which he just now finds out, which, that's not necessarily his fault. He didn't know it yet. And so now that it's going to do less damage, I can sit here and Wish Pass all day. Even Heavy Slam's not going to do all that much. So I can just sit here and Wish and Protect until I'm happy. And basically, so I'm kind of just walling out this Aggron. I can't really do much to it because I used Toxic on, or attempted to, on the Volcanion. So he finally switches out and goes into Cloyster here. And I switch out and go into Krookodile because I knew he was switching. I didn't know what he was going to switch to. And I think this was a poor play on my part because he made the good play of going into Cloyster knowing that Chansey is too passive to stop the Shell Smash. So I switched out into Krookodile hoping I could set up rocks, and then he just so happened to bring in Cloyster before I could do that because I was running a Salac Berry bulk up Krookodile set this week that I was really hoping to use. And I was like, well, great. He's going to set up here. I'm not going to really be able to stop him. At least I'll break his sash. So I break the sash. He goes for the Shell Smash, and I'm like, I can't really do anything to stop it at this point. I'm going to have to let my Krookodile go down. And so I kind of lost my ability to do some residual damage to his team. Knowing the Latios could have brought the Defog, though, I really was only hoping it would break the sash on the Cloyster if need be. But I get a Prankster burn off on the Cloyster, and so I force the switch here once the Icicle Spear is done. And so what I should have done here is I knew that he was expecting me to stay in and set up, and I did. And he went out into to Blissey, and I thought, well, Blissey can't do that much to me. I'll just set up all the way and see what happens. He gets the free heal on the Cloyster. It's no longer burned. I am just setting up here. We'll go ahead and skip a couple because basically it's me setting up and healing and burning and healing, and that's basically all that's happening, and that was like 10 turns, and it kind of just keeps going because I know that I have more PP than him, so I could stall him out. But I realized very quickly that even at +4, I couldn't do as much damage to Blissey as I had hoped. So that was a bit unfortunate, and that's why I think I probably should have switched into something else rather than sat here and done this. But here, we basically are still just sitting trying to hit each other and break one another. I think he was hoping for a crit, but even a crit only does like 60%. I calced it. So I knew I was sitting here good, and I was like, you know, this is fine, I can keep taking it. And he gets the crit, I go for the recover, and I think he was expecting that. So he went into Chandelure. I'm like, is he Specs? I'm not really sure why he switched in here. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to go for a Dark Pulse. Like, I don't see why he would have switched in here. Maybe it was a misplay? I don't know. Well, he goes for Imprison, and I'm like, I forget what Imprison does. But, you know, I'll just see what happens. And I very quickly learned that he's carrying Calm Mind and makes the prediction of Dark Pulse and Shadow Ball, like having all those in his set. He completely removed my ability to attack him, in addition to the fact that all I could do was recover. And so I couldn't use Will-O-Wisp because it's Flash Fire, and it's a fire type. I couldn't use Calm Mind or Dark Pulse because of Imprison. And so I'm like, well, crap, now I'm stuck. I literally can't do anything. I went and just stalled a turn, and I realized that, oh, now he's going to set up because he has the same moveset as me except for one move. And I'm like, well, crap. And here's what I think. I think he should have, like, instead of... I think he sets up here, actually. Yeah, he keeps setting up. He should have just gone for a Shadow Ball or a Flamethrower, knowing I wasn't just going to sit there, and it would have taken out my Weavile. I knew I was in trouble at that point, but once he didn't attack me, I knew I could just throw off a knockoff on anything that he switches into. And then this is where I go back into, or I go into Zapdos, who has a Rocky Helmet, knowing that I could have a chance to paralyze as well as do some residual to him. Now I know that he's going to switch out and go to something else, and I go for a Thunderbolt when I think I probably should have gone for a Volt Switch instead. It really didn't end up mattering because I just went for a Volt Switch and went back out into, I think, Sableye? Yes. Because all he can do is Dazzling Gleam, and it does a max of 30 without a crit. So I wasn't like too worried about it. And so he's doing the same thing again, and I go for a Recover. And here I go for... I think I go for a switch, predicting him to switch because he knows I can just do this all day. I switch it back out into Chansey. I go for a Wish knowing that this, even with the burn, the Steam Eruption, nothing that this Volcanion can do can take me out. And so I go for the wish. I go for toxic instead because I knew that even with the burn, I'd live. So I got the toxic timer started on him, and I went for another wish here, and then I go for the protect, and I start to try and stall some, lower its health. And so here I just went for protect, and I was like, okay, well he switched, and let's see. So next I knew that he was going to go for something, and I go for counter because that was my fourth move. And so running him, whatever he was going to hit me with, I was like, I knew I need counter for something, especially that Aggron that I can't break, because I'm not bringing Heat Wave on Zapdos this week. I'm not bringing Talonflame. I needed something. And so I brought counter because I knew that thing would want to hit me really hard. And so I went for the counter, and it took him out. And it ended up working out really well for me. So here I again go for the Toxic Stall, trying to weaken the Volcanion. And let's see. Yeah, I'm just trying to stall him out to weaken him. I'm looking at my notes, that's why I keep stopping. Next I go into Thunderbird, the Zapdos, expecting the Focus Blast or something, and I knew I would live it. And then at this point I go for the pivot and go for Volt Switch like I should have done before. And I'm like, great, free switching into Weavile, which completely obliterates Latias. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go for knockoff, and I'm kind of surprised he stayed in. But that's fine. So the Latias is down, and that was actually probably the thing that I was worried about most outside of the Cloyster. I get another knockoff on the Blissey, knowing that even with a Dazzling Gleam, it wasn't going to take me out. But he goes for Healing Wish and heals up the Volcanion, which was a good play on his part. So after that, I go back out to Chansey because I know that's my dedicated wall for pretty much everything he has. I go for the Wish here, and then I knew he was going to go for Shell Smash again to set up, so I went for the Toxic, and I'm glad that it landed because I would have lost otherwise, I think. But I ended up poisoning it, and I'm like, okay, well, here I should have gone for another Wish, because I knew that if he hit me, I probably still would have lived. I might have not, but it would have given me a third turn, or it would have given me another turn of his poison without losing Zapdos here. And then after that, I switch into my Sableye to go down and let the Toxic take out the Cloyster. But in that way, I wouldn't have had to get rid of the Sableye, and that would have been just another, it would have been a 4-0 probably instead. So that was a bit of a misplay on my part. And then here he goes into Chandelure, expecting the Aura Sphere, which was a good play. And then here he should have just gone for a Shadow Ball, but he goes for Calm Mind, maybe thinking that he would be faster. And I'm not sure. He seemed like he was a bulky set. But, I ended up being able to take him out here. And then at the last turn, I'm like, well, he has to hit me with something. If he goes for Focus Blast, I'll just Mirror Coat, which was my counter for Chandelure, Latias, and Volcanion. And that ended up securing the kill for me, or securing the victory for me at a 3-0. So I think we both had some really cool strategies, and they both worked really well. I think I made some misplays with the Krookodile, because I think if I had the chance to get that Salac Berry off, I would have had a really good chance of sweeping, and I was kind of hoping for it. But I also made some questionable plays about when to, switch out, when to make certain, but I think it was a really good match. I think it was, one of the top matches of the week. And
I agree.
It was really fun. It was also really long, but that was my fault for being the staller for the, I'm usually not that kind of person, but, anyways, we will go ahead and finish off here and just talk about the top plays of the week and the top misplays of the week. So, next...
I want to... yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were finished. You go ahead and finish what you were saying.
All right. Well, I was going to say that the top 5 plays of the week were, first, I think that we all kind of agree that Imprisoned Chandelure was nothing, like, it wasn't something anybody could have expected. Nobody would think that Imprison could be used competitively, I guess, because it's really just, for countering one Pokemon, and it worked so well. So I think that was a really cool play, and it worked, so well. He just should have followed through a little bit more with it. But anyways,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he
I
should
wanna
have just
come-
gone on
yeah.
the offensive.
Yeah, I want to commend Isaac for thinking that. I never would have thought of running in prison. Like it would never would have even gone through my head
It was
because
awesome.
yeah, I think for
Yeah, it
so
was.
many players in prison is just filed away and like somewhere in the back of their brain is like, oh, this is a move that's worthless. It's like we file it in the same folder with Splash, and
Oh,
cut.
really?
But
Yeah.
but the way he ran it, it neutralized what is probably the best Pokemon in your entire draft pool.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's just
The fact that
fantastic.
He had an answer and he waited as long as he did, trying to because he knew that he had that in the back, and all he needed was a safe switch in, or knowing that I'm gonna stall, and he had that safe switch in. No matter how set up I was with Mega Sableye, he knew he could just bring it in, and so it kind of like my whole setup strategy was nullified by the fact that he had that prepared at all. So, congrats to him on that, and preparing for that. The second one was the Entrainment Trap Bisharp with the Cosmic Power Sigilif. That totally just the fact that Bisharp got taken out. David said that he packed a Lumberry on it for that Psycho Shift, so he would have been able to handle it had that showdown occurred, but he didn't have that chance because he got trapped, and then Dugtrio just destroyed him.
Had that Pokemon showdown occurred.
Yeah. And then,
by the way, you viewers cannot see it, but the second the Sigilif was mentioned, Dan's got his video on, and he just was made a very sad face. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. And then the third play I got was the counter on Mega Aggron, because I think at that point the match kind of changed pace. I did make some misplays, and Cloyster did do some damage, but I knew at the end that I had Blastoise who could wall a +2 from Cloyster, with Rock Blast or anything for that matter, and get off, an Aura Sphere and finish it off. So, I think that the counter on to Mega Aggron with the Chansey, even though it's not super strong on the physical side, it was enough to take out the Mega Aggron, and I think ultimately that kind of sealed the fate of the match in a lot of ways. And so the fourth play was the Ice Punch on the switch in to Mega Salamence from the Gengars. That was just, I said before that I'm not sure if that was him trying to do damage with a different type of move and see what it did, or if he predicted it, then that's why it's up here. But either way, it impacted the match so importantly. So I think that was really good. And then the last one was the Trick Choice Specs Espeon on the Feliday's team, getting rid of the ability for him to set up rocks later on. That was pretty important, not for the sake of so much of getting rocks on the other side or even protecting his own team from rocks, but just causing him to get so frazzled and switching into Volcarona and getting that taken out, and then Seismitoad after that. So I think that it was an impactful play in that way too.
Personally, I think probably my favorite, one of my favorite. If I had to pick I could pick maybe a top 3. It would be in no particular order. It'd be the use of Imprison on Chandler in order to neutralize Mega Sableye. That was brilliant, and I never would have thought of it. Then the second would be using double Shell Smash against Fortress there, just by knowing it would not be that he wouldn't be able to do anything to stop you with it. And then probably the Sigilif sweep. That was pretty great.
Yeah, it was. And then 3. These are the top misplays, not necessarily in any order, but I think that these were pivotal moments in the match where either making one turn mistake caused the rest of the match to be one-dimensional, or making that kind of change the momentum from one side to the other. The first one was the NPCs bringing the Metagross and not bringing Bullet Punch to just have priority in general, but for the sake of that Gorbis could have totally been stopped, but that +4 Shell Smash ended up obliterating his team just because he didn't bring Bullet Punch on the Metagross.
Yeah.
So I think that was a huge misplay. And
Priority, kids. It saves lives. Hell, it saved me this week. It saved me back in week 1 with the Conkeldurr Mach Punch.
Yeah, yeah. And then the second one was the Charmeleon Swords Dance on the Mega Pinsir. At least it could have been a closer match, if not a win for the Charmeleonaires.
Mm-hmm.
Because
he could have totally won that match.
Yeah, because he didn't have to go for that Swords Dance, but maybe he was afraid that the Victini wouldn't, be able to resist like a quick attack or something if it was scarfed, which I'm not sure if it was, but if it was scarfed, it probably would have taken him out. I brought it up earlier when I was talking in the team building section that Victini was indeed scarfed, specifically so it could outspeed Pinsir and Greninja. Right. So, Pinsir still probably would have had trouble with the Victini because it was scarfed, because either V-Create or Bolt Strike, if it was physical or special, those moves would have one-shot it probably. And I think that it was still a huge misplay because it didn't have to end the way it did, because he still had Greninja, and could have probably at least made it a 1-0 if not won the match. But it all just depends on how it would have played out, which, we never know.
Right, at that point it comes down to whether the aerialated quick attack one-shots Victini or not. If it doesn't, but at that point you've got a lot of variables as far as damage calc, crits. He had a chance at least, and he ruined the chance. And
then the third misplay was the Stealth Rocks onto the Magic Bounce Espeon turn 1. He couldn't help, necessarily expecting the Trick Espeon, but he could have helped knowing the fact that he didn't, that he wasn't prepared enough to know the ability. Magic Bounce would be on Espeon probably, and then probably knowing what it does for that matter. So I think those 3 misplays were all in each of those respective matches kind of sealed the fate of those people, and their teams and stuff. But, after all the stuff that we've talked about, I do want to say that, we're not trying to dog on any teams. We just want to see everybody grow, and that's why we bring up these things. We talk about top plays and misplays because we want to encourage people to learn about the game, and if they need help, I'll potentially be doing some streams or just calls and stuff in the future where people will have the opportunity to learn about basic or advanced strategy when it comes to team building or decision making in game. So I hope that everybody, still had a good time this week, and I hope that everybody takes what they've learned these first 3 weeks, and specifically this week, and tries to do a little bit better in at least team preparation, if not trying to make safer decisions in the future.
Yeah, and even with those misplays in mind, I have to say after watching the replays for this week, y'all are getting better. I've already seen a noticeable difference from week 1. Everyone's shaping up much nicer. I think just everyone's had a bit of time to get used to the Pokemon that they drafted and how they all fit and how they can all fit together, and just have gotten some ideas of what they can do with them. We saw some great stuff this week, and I can't wait to see what comes in the following 7 and beyond that with the tournament.
Any other thoughts?
Chase is gonna murder me this week. I can already tell. I'm gonna die.
The only thing I would say is don't be afraid to be creative. I was looking at even
Chandelure.
Exactly. But I was looking at there are a few of the teams, including mine, that this week were stagnant again, and it'd probably even if it messes up for you or early in the season, it's a good time to try. And if you don't, people are going to start predicting it. So I will say, don't be afraid to try something new. If it doesn't work out, it's a Pokemon battle, so it's not the end of your life.
Yep. Well, that's it for this weekly recap. Just tune in next week for week 4, and we'll hopefully have some more good matches. So talk to you
tune
later,
in next
guys.
week. Yeah. Tune in next week and watch us fail even harder, keeping it short.
Yep. All right, guys. See ya. Thanks for watching, guys. If y'all enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you want, subscribe for more videos. Hope to see y'all in the future, and thank you for watching.